So this is a short class about Shakespeare's Othello's dramatic structure. നാടകത്തിന്റെ ഘടനയാണ് dramatic structure. We know that every Shakespearean play consists of 5 acts. One of the famous observations about Shakespearean tragedies has been made by A.C. Bradley. Every student of Shakespeare, every student of Shakespearean tragedy should know about A.C. Bradley, especially his famous book, Shakespearean Tragedy, lectures on Hamlet, King Lear, Othello, and Macbeth. It was first published in 1905 in London by Macmillan. Shakespearean Tragedy by A.C. Bradley, who lived from 1851 to 1935. In the second half of the 19th century and in the first quarter of the 20th century. Remember, the book Shakespearean Tragedy it was published in 1905. Now, in that book, in his lectures, A.C. Bradley observes, this is his observation: a Shakespearean tragedy represents a conflict. So every drama begins with a conflict. If there is no conflict, there is no drama. So a drama originates from a conflict. A Shakespearean tragedy represents a conflict which terminates in a catastrophe. Well, the beginning is a conflict and the end is a tragedy, a catastrophe. Such a tragedy may be roughly divided into 3 parts. This is what A.C. Bradley said. The first part. So every Shakespearean tragedy has 3 parts. The first is called exposition. Take, for example, think of the first scene, the opening scene. The opening scene in the Othello presents a problematic situation. So it begins with a problem. Rodrigo and Iago, they discuss the elopement of the secret marriage of Desdemona and Othello. So it presents a problematic situation, out of which what happens? A conflict arises. Well, then starts the conflict. The second section deals with the definite beginning, the growth, and the ups and downs, the vicissitudes of the conflict. So first there is an exposition, then there is a conflict, then the rising action. So the growth, the beginning, the growth, and the vicissitudes, the ups and downs of the conflict. It forms the bulk of the play. If you think of, for example, Othello, the second section, it involves act number 2, act number 3, and act number 4. 2, 3, and 4. Also part of act 1 and part of act 5. So it forms the bulk of the play, comprising the second, third, and fourth acts, usually a part of the first and a part of the fifth. And the final section, the third section of the tragedy, shows the issue of the conflict in a catastrophe. Here in Act 5, Scene 2, we see that Desdemona is murdered, Emilia is murdered, Othello stabs himself, Rodrigo is murdered. So there is, a huge, a mountain of a mountain of dead bodies. So this is a catastrophe. So every Shakespearean tragedy starts with a conflict and ends in a catastrophe. So hope it's clear. Is it clear? This is what A.C. Bradley said about, this is Bradley's observations on Shakespearean tragedy. Well, this is the dramatic structure. The dramatic structure of a Shakespearean tragedy. Look at this. It has, five sections or 5 points. First is exposition, that is Act 1, and 2, the second point. Look, it has a pyramidal structure. A Shakespearean tragedy has a pyramidal structure. Exposition, the first one. The second one is conflict and the rising action. And then comes the climax, the turning point, and then falling action and the catastrophe. And finally, the resolution. The villain is identified, and the crime and the conspiracy, the plans and designs of the villain are exposed, and finally the villain is punished. So there, from chaos, first there is a chaos, a problems, confusions, and all those things, a sort of lawlessness, and finally the order is established. The order, is re-established. Finally, everything ends in a peaceful manner, because we as viewers, the people who watch the drama, we get relieved that the villain is punished and order is established. So exposition, conflict and rising action, turning point or climax, and falling action, and resolution, or it is also known as denouement, denouement. This is the structure of the 5-act structure of a Shakespearean tragedy. Well, exposition, as I said, the exposition takes place here in Othello. It takes place in Venice. It presents a group of interesting characters in a problematic situation. Othello is there, Rodrigo is there. Rodrigo has been, courting. Well, he has been courting Desdemona, and he has been spending a lot of money, but it's of no avail. It's no use. It is his efforts have been useless. He has been giving a lot of money to Iago, or Iago has been exploiting the situation. That's it. And they discuss the secret marriage. Othello secretly marries Desdemona, the daughter of a Venetian nobleman, that is Brabantio. The scene also hints at the impending. We know that the problems are going to occur. For example, the Cassio's promotion to lieutenancy. Well, that's also a problem, because Iago has been expecting a promotion, but in its place, Cassio has been appointed. So it further introduces the threats of the such plots, Rodrigo's courtship of Desdemona, Iago's unhappiness over denial of promotion, and his grudge against Othello and Cassio. So the problematic situation is presented in Act 1, which is exposition. Now, the second part, the second section is conflict and rising action. So the conflict and the rising action, it covers, as I said earlier, the bulk of the play, in which the fortunes of the protagonist advance. The fortunes advance. Othello is sent to Cyprus to defend the island from the Turkish invaders. Othello and Desdemona is very happy in their life together, but the smooth relationship is spoilt by Iago. Iago reveals his plans. First, to split up Othello and to spoil the marriage. Then to get Cassio fired, to demote, to get the demotion of Cassio from his position as lieutenant. He also attempts to inject poison into the mind of Othello. Iago tells Othello that Desdemona is unfaithful to him. So a conflict in the mind of Othello, and there is a problem, a conflict, and now the rising action, everything, the conflict, it moves up towards, it goes up towards, well, the climax, the turning point. And then come the turning point in which Iago drops the handkerchief, the ocular proof, as he said, handkerchief in Desdemona's handkerchief in Cassio's room. The handkerchief, as he says, as Othello himself says, becomes the ocular proof for Othello. Othello unreasonably trusts Iago. He's a fool, he's a stupid fellow. He's very, very credulous, gullible person, and he believes whatever Iago says. Othello becomes jealous. He also vows, he takes a pledge, he vows that he cannot rest until he has taken a revenge. This is the turning point, the climax, and then the falling action. In the falling action, we know, Desdemona is murdered, stifled. He stifles Desdemona against the pillow and murders her. Rodrigo is killed. Iago also attempts to kill Cassio, but Cassio escapes. Even though he's injured, even though he's hurt, he escapes. He's not murdered. Well, Emilia, Iago's wife, exposes everything. She reveals Iago's devilish plans. And finally, the resolution. The matters are settled. All the problems are settled. The devilish designs are fully revealed. The designs of Iago are fully revealed. And Othello, of course, he has, nothing else to do. He kills himself. This is the ordinary reaction, the reaction of an ordinary man. And even though he's a hero, even though he's a general, well, he's a man. This is the only way out for Othello. He kills himself. Iago is, taken away for punishment. The audience is shocked with the disbelief and the despair. We, people who are watching the play, we are shocked. We can't believe all these things, happening. And we are also in despair. And the audience, they are relieved that, there is only one relief, that Iago, the villain, gets exposed and punished appropriately, punished suitably. After the chaos, well, a lot of problems, a lot of lawlessness, murder, plans, intrigues, conspiracies, all these things, a lot of chaos. After the chaos, finally, the order is restored. So there is a system, a prevalence of the system, a prevalence of the order, the law and order is established. We, as the viewers, we are also, happy. We feel relieved. And this is the dramatic structure of Othello, especially a typical Shakespearean tragedy. I hope this is clear. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.